Hello Internet, and welcome to Ramblings of a Madman. I'm Alex, and I'm joined by Sean and Stuart for a shallow and probably uninformed dive into the world of unexplained mysteries, conspiracy theories, and the supernatural. And we're back after our December break. How was everyone's Christmas?
Probably November as well, I think, but
it doesn't count because of the time between the episodes.
Yeah.
Just ignore it, it's fine.
It's like waking up after a long nap. It's nice.
Yeah. Everyone's refreshed, ready to get their tinfoil hats back on.
I never took mine off.
I sleep in mine.
You should really clean it. Like, they get quite dirty.
I do clean it.
Okay, sure. When you're washing your hair in the shower, you make sure to get a tinfoil hat clean.
Right, this needs moving on.
Mainly because Sean's bald.
What? What's that got to do with it?
Well, Alex said when you wash your hair in the shower, and I was like, well, Sean doesn't do that, does he?
Yeah, I did miss that. Come on.
Okay, when he washes his smooth noggin.
When he gets his turtle wax out.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, you guys.
Yep.
It's good to be back.
Happy New Year.
I didn't get any turtle wax for Christmas.
Oh, I'll buy you some next year. So.
Yeah, thank you.
So, celebrities, they're just like us. They drink water, they drive cars, and they wear clothes, and they can also be killed, just like us. So let's talk about Marilyn Monroe and how she may or may not have been killed.
Oh.
Ooh.
This is one of the first times we've come into an episode and we have no idea what the topic's going to be at all. And that's thrown a complete curveball.
It has.
I'm excited.
Good. You better be. I've prepared long and hard on this topic.
So you spent 10 minutes yesterday doing it, yeah?
Yeah. 5 minutes before we started recording.
You're reading the transcript of another
I opened
video.
the Wikipedia article and...
I like the idea that there's somebody else recording a podcast which is going in Alex's ears and he's just talking it, repeating it out loud.
Or he literally went onto the Wikipedia and it said, Marilyn Monroe might not be dead. Ah, okay, let's make a film. And that's all the source I have.
Pretty much. I also didn't shill. So while you're out there, look for Ramblings of a Madman on all your podcast websites and they'll give us a review. It'll be really helpful.
Worst shill ever.
I love Family Guy.
What was that from Family Guy?
No, it's from Simpsons. I'm trying to wind Stuart. All right, go. Let's go.
Around 4 a.m. on the 5th of August 1962, psychiatrist Dr. Ralph Greenson and physician Dr. Hyman Engelberg arrived at the home of their client Marilyn Monroe. They were summoned by the star's housekeeper, Eunice Marie, who had frantically called them after she was unable to get a response from Monroe. Finding her bedroom door locked, Greenson activated. Apparently she's a robot housekeeper. Finding her bedroom door locked, Greenson advised the housekeeper to check in on her through the window, at which time she saw Monroe lying face down on the bed, covered by a sheet and holding a telephone receiver. Greenson managed to reach his client by breaking through the window and confirmed her death. They notified the LA Police Department at 4:25 a.m. So, in case you don't know about Marilyn Monroe, she was an American actress, model and singer, famous throughout the 50s and 60s. She's like a major icon of pop culture. You've definitely seen...
You'll definitely have seen some pop art picture of her face on a t-shirt or something.
The one with blonde hair with like the skirt blowing up.
Some Like It Hot is a very good film, in my opinion. It still stands up today. Go watch it.
Okay, there's a glowing review from Sean.
Doesn't count for much, but...
The level of review is not high, but it's there.
No, it's there.
But, however, it's her private life where the juice is at. She struggled with addiction and mood disorders throughout her career. She had highly publicised marriages to baseball player Joe DiMaggio and to playwright Arthur Miller, which both ended in divorce. She was believed to have had affairs with both JFK and his younger brother Robert, fueled by her appearance at a nationally televised birthday tribute on May 19th, during which she sang the now legendary Happy Birthday, Mr. President. So you probably heard of that, the famous/awkward song she sung to the president. And she may also have had ties to the mafia.
Apparently everyone does.
Some shady stuff going on. So the police turn up to the house. A guy called Detective Sergeant Byron examined the scene and he said he found nothing unusual or amiss. He reported that there were 12 to 15 bottles of medicine on Monroe's bedside cabinet, some with prescription labels. Among these was an empty bottle of Nembutal, which is a sedative, which had been issued a few days before. The prescription of 50 capsules were to be taken in doses of 1 a night, said her doctor Hyman Engelberg. Her body was taken to the LA County morgue to determine the cause of death. Deputy Coroner Thomas Noguchi conducted Monroe's autopsy the same day she was taken there. Based on the state of rigor mortis at the time her body was discovered, it was estimated that she had died between 8:30 and 10:30 the night before. There were no signs of external wounds on her body except for a small bruise on the lower back. The toxicological analysis concluded that she had died from acute barbiturate poisoning, since she had high levels of sedatives in her blood and liver. The possibility of an accidental overdose was ruled out because the dosages found in her body were so high that the pills must have been ingested within a very short time. The coroner's office therefore listed the death on its records as possible suicide, while the police report noted death still as possibly accidental. So in order to determine whether or not she had taken her life, a special suicide team was put together, and it had her doctor and a psychologist in and a few other people that they interviewed. No suicide note had been written, but it's not uncommon for suicides not to have a suicide note. They believed that Monroe had been depressed in the days leading up to her death, and apparently she had been unkempt and uninterested in maintaining her appearance. Difficulty sleeping was common for her, for which she had been taking the sedatives for many years. She had also been going through career trouble. Her drug and alcohol issues had led her to being fired from her last film, Something's Got to Give. Her last conversation was with JFK's brother-in-law, Peter Lawford, who had called Monroe about 8 p.m. Lawford was concerned because she sounded like she was under the influence of drugs. She told him to say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to the president, and say goodbye to yourself because you're a nice guy, before drifting off. Worried about her, Lawford managed to get in touch with the housekeeper, who assured him that Monroe was fine. So Lawford tried to call Monroe back, she wasn't answering. He ended up calling, I think, his agent, who called Marilyn Monroe's agent, who got in touch with the housekeeper. So through some different connections, managed to get in touch with him. But the housekeeper said Monroe's okay, she's in her bedroom. I don't think she checked, maybe, because later on she checked and the door was locked and she was dead, so I don't know what's going on there.
So that was the same day?
That was a few hours before the housekeeper called Dr. Greenson to say she was worried about her.
So just give us that timeline again, Alex. So she was last seen by the housekeeper when?
I'm not sure when she was last seen by the housekeeper, but she was called by Peter Lawford at 8 p.m.
Okay.
I'm not sure how long the call lasted, maybe half an hour. And then early in the morning, the housekeeper woke up, saw a light on in Monroe's room, knocked the door, she wasn't answering. She started to panic and then she phoned up the doctor.
And the coroner's report said that she died at what time?
Between 8:30 and 10:30.
PM?
In the morning?
PM.
PM, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
So she died...
The body was found about 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So she died potentially during the phone call
Perhaps,
from
yeah.
the other guy.
Oh.
Perhaps, or she passed out during the phone call and then she died.
Yeah,
a bit
or we said
afterwards.
that she sounded like she was drifting off, as whether or not she
Yeah.
literally died on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
On more than one occasion, however, in the past, she had attempted suicide using sedatives, but had always called for help and been rescued. The team therefore came to the conclusion that this had happened again, but without the rescue.
Mm-hmm.
So they were pretty convinced that she'd committed suicide, maybe for attention reasons again, but probably past that and failed to get help. And that was like the stance they got to. That was the official reason she died.
Was that phone call with her recorded?
It was not.
Because I'm guessing it was, this was 19...
It was the early 60s. 62.
Early 60s, yeah, so it wouldn't have just been simple to record a phone call.
No, you definitely could record phone calls at that time, but this was just a friend she was talking to on the phone, so it wouldn't be recorded.
why would it be
Yeah.
recorded?
That's what I mean. So what if he lied?
Yeah, it's possible. I believe
What she
he phoned her about attending a party or something, like the week after or something like that. So they've said she's committed suicide, but many of her friends weren't convinced by this story. A guy called James Bacon said he had seen her a few days before and that she wasn't in the least bit depressed. Her agent, Pat Newcomb, had spent the night at Monroe's house, and they planned to go to the movies the next day. He said she was in perfect physical health and was feeling great. Her attorney, Milton Rudin, had also talked to her the day before. He said she appeared to be happy and was in the process of settling her differences with 21st Century Fox Studios over her issues when filming her last film. She also reportedly had many offers on the table, including 2 movies, a nightclub appearance, and a star role in an upcoming musical. Recently as well, tapes came out of her talking to a psychologist a few days before she apparently committed suicide. I think this was 2007 these came out. And they also support the fact that she didn't commit suicide. So the head of LA District Attorney's Medical Legal Section, John Miner, interviewed Dr. Ralph Greenson right after Monroe died. So this is back in the 60s.
And who's Ralph Greenson?
Ralph Greenson was a doctor.
Oh, I thought you said it was somebody called Hyman Engelberg. Have I mixed that up? Was he the...
No, sorry. Hyman Engelberg was her physician. Ralph Greenson was a psychiatrist.
Ah, sorry, okay.
So still a doctor, but different kind.
I just want to bring the level of humour back down to my level. His name is Hyman.
I was waiting for that. I also heard you snigger earlier in the recording and didn't want to interrupt Alex's monologue.
Keep it classy. Keep it classy, guys. So, this John Miner, he interviewed Dr. Ralph Greenson. During the interview, Greenson played tapes of his recent sessions with Monroe, but only on the condition that Miner never reveal their contents. Miner, however, took extensive notes and only revealed them years after Greenson died. And he revealed them because conspiracy theorists started to think that Miner was involved in her death. So he was like, no, these are some transcripts I've got from an interview I did. I can't be the person who killed her. So to cover his own tracks. The transcripts show Monroe obsessing about the Oscars, yearning to be taken seriously as an actress, and speaking candidly about why her 2 marriages ended in divorce. Basically, she sounded pretty coherent, pretty intelligent, and like not someone who sounded like they were going to kill themselves a few days after. Miner contends that anyone reading the transcripts would conclude that there was no possible way this woman could have killed herself. She had very specific plans about her future. She knew exactly what she wanted to do.
Well, it's difficult.
It is. It's definitely difficult, but because, especially people with mental health problems, like they can swing day by day.
Yeah. She had massive issues constantly. And it's difficult from one side because her mate's saying that she was really happy. She was really happy. If someone is depressed, you can't always tell.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely.
It's not necessarily surface level. So, but then the other side of it is if they're close enough friends, they might be able to tell subtle differences, or they'll know when she's not well or feeling a bit lower than usual.
Mm-hmm. They are also biased.
They're also biased.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is that they might not necessarily be that bothered about being her friend. They're all there to have financial gain from her situation, aren't they? Agents make money. Like the physician, okay, fair enough, maybe they might have been able to tell.
Well, when you said it was her friends, Alex, I'm presuming I'm taking that as you meant her friends. Or
well, it's hard to say whether
work colleagues.
A lot of the people I mentioned were work colleagues, and they definitely had fingers in the pie, so to speak. But
it'd be a bit like having an accountant, and then somebody saying, "Oh, well, their accountant said that they seemed fine."
Mm-hmm.
It's like it just doesn't necessarily. It's hard to tell how much relevance it has.
Yeah, but I think Pat Newcomb's mentioned a lot as a close friend of Monroe, and I think they did actually have a good relationship, like more than an agent.
Okay.
So, was she murdered? Over time, more and more claims surfaced that Monroe's death was a murder and not a suicide. The autopsy claimed that a large number of pills caused her death, but no trace of the capsules were found in her stomach. The rationale being if Monroe had swallowed 30 or more capsules, she would have died before it all was absorbed. Therefore, people find it more likely that she was administered the sedatives through an enema.
I thought you were going to say the capsule content was poured into a drink and she drank it without knowing.
I mean, would you notice 30 capsules in a drink?
Well, I'm just thinking...
That's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, they were digested. Like, were they broken down, sorry?
There was no trace of them in her stomach, so people are assuming that she never swallowed them, because she would die so fast that there'd still be some left in her stomach.
Yeah. Well, okay.
To someone untrained in medicine, that sounds pretty reasonable to me, but I don't know if you think different, Stu.
Yeah, I would have thought my understanding is the acid, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stu, the acid would still be there when you're dead for a long period, longer than that night, surely. Or does your stomach acid actually start to denature?
It's more that acid...
If that's the right word for acid.
Acid production is like in cycles, so it responds to its consumption at the same time as well. So like the more acid you need, the more acid that gets produced. So if your body loses the stimulus of being alive and needing to digest and losing the nervous system input, you will actually stop producing acid. So that would make sense. That kind of makes sense. That's why I was wondering about if you take the capsules, the coating of the capsules out of the equation and say that the powder of it was dissolved in a drink, could she have been maybe not drunk it herself and not been able to taste it, but could she have been given the medicine in a drink rather than it being as an enema? But I'm sure you're about to tell us a bit more about it.
Well, I haven't heard anyone...
The second side of it is, would someone go out of their way to administer an enema?
I mean, it's a way of giving someone barbiturate poisoning without giving evidence of it.
Okay.
Right. No one seems to mention anyone spiking a drink, so I don't know if that's a thing people think, but like I said, I think it would be hard to dissolve that many capsules in a drink without someone noticing.
Unless she was...
For the taste of it as well, yeah. It needs to be like a really strong drink, and then quite a lot of it, like you said. And even then, the further away from water you get, the harder it would be to dissolve stuff.
Was there any alcohol in her system, Alex?
They don't mention.
It did say she was an alcoholic.
Yeah, she was definitely alcoholic.
Was she sober by that point? Because I'm guessing not.
Apparently her stomach was completely empty, so...
Yeah, okay.
Okay, because the main thing I was thinking is that from a mental health point of view with overdoses, people act quite impulsively under the influence of alcohol, so a lot of overdoses and things happen during that. And I was thinking to myself then, if she'd already had a dose of her sedative and was a bit sleepy, or she was drunk, it might be easier for her to administer something that she might not like the taste of. If we're going down the whole murder route, thinking
but then would they be able to get traces in her mouth as well?
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. I suppose
if
similarly,
there's quite a lot, 30 pills worth. Doesn't matter how much like liquid and stuff you throw down. Surely there'll be traces of it.
But similarly, if we're thinking that they've put 30 capsules worth of medicine up her bum, how have they got that in without them finding evidence on the autopsy?
I think the rationale is if you do it through an enema, it goes straight into the bloodstream, so there wouldn't be evidence.
Suppose.
If I'm incorrect, or...
So presumably the capsules have been opened and the content has been put in?
Yeah, into like an enema solution, and then...
Yeah. But then I think you'd have to be pretty sedated to have someone do that to you.
Yeah, I think the assumption is that they've knocked her out before they've done this.
Yeah. But it's interesting that her stomach's emptied, because whatever they've knocked her out with hasn't been taken orally. So she hasn't had alcohol. That's in her system,
they often say chloroform.
Ah, okay.
So another thing is that the autopsy noted there were no needle marks present on the body, despite the fact that she routinely received injections from her doctors. Now, I don't know what kind of injections you would need routinely, unless you were diabetic, but this is a claim people say, so...
If she's
even
got,
then, you do it yourself, right?
Not necessarily. If she's got a mental health disorder, she might be on a long-term antipsychotic injection.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah, no, Yeah, I've come across that in the past.
So, due to the clear omittal of needle marks from the autopsy, theorists have suggested that drugs had been injected into Monroe. Some even point to the small bruise on her back as the injection point. So the fact that they definitely omit needle marks, even though she probably had needle marks on the body, is what makes people think that there was an injection.
As if they were... Right, okay, yeah. Because she should have had needle marks.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I suppose the other question as well is that, granted this is a bit of a loose connection, because obviously we don't have any... I don't have a reference to that, but if it was somebody who was on something long-term treatment, who then maybe hasn't had their treatment, you might say their mental state has suffered for the lack of treatment as well, potentially. and that might lead her to have been more suicidal.
Yep, definitely. So if she hadn't been getting her injections and they weren't lying about the needle marks in her body, then it makes it more likely that she committed suicide herself.
Yeah.
If that's what you're saying. Okay, other shady details include the housekeeper was seen washing Monroe's bedsheets in the middle of the night as the police arrived to inspect the scene, which is really weird.
What? Wait, so the police... So the police arrive and
the housekeepers found
the
the body
was on. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. The housekeepers found the body. Greenson has said she's dead after looking at the body. They phoned the police, and then as the police get there, Eunice Murray is washing her bedsheets.
That's mad.
Now, that's from one source, so I don't know if it's completely true.
Well, so she was washing the bedsheets. Did she know about the death? And
she was the one who called in the death to start with, so she knew about the death.
Maybe
she's hiding the enema.
Because she could be hiding evidence completely. Oh, you said enema, didn't you?
I did, yeah. That's what I mean. They're hiding the evidence.
Yeah,
so if the enema's been given, there'll be some sort of liquid trace, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, the bedsheets will be soaked, right?
Especially when she passes away and everything relaxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It might be... to be fair, there are times when people, like the last rightsy kind of stuff, where people's bodies get cleaned, there might have been good intention behind it in terms of making her feel and seem more decent than she is now that she's deceased.
Yeah.
But still,
especially if
she's
an
unexplained death.
Especially if she's a big star as well, and they don't want it to get into the newspapers, like the state her body's in.
Yeah.
Maybe the housekeeper's conditioned to, like, okay, I need to make her look as good as possible for the press.
Yeah, because she's in the public image so much with that impression anyway.
Yeah, my impression of it was that she could have been panicking.
Yeah.
Like, if she was the one who made the call and everything, she might literally just be like, shit, hang on. She died. Hang on, what do I do? And she's just washing out of habit.
Just take her mind off it.
Just, not even thinking. Which doesn't look good, don't get me wrong, but that's completely possible from that side as well. She genuinely could be completely innocent in that.
Was there any forensic evidence obtained from the sheets afterwards,
no,
despite them being washed?
Not at all. There's no forensic information mentioned at all in this investigation.
That's mad.
I don't know whether that's a 60s thing or whether that's it doesn't fit the conspiracy theories and people don't mention it.
I can't imagine it's a 60s thing, because remember the one that I did, which was set in the 50s, the short story one?
With the girl.
The little girl, yeah. There was forensic evidence in that case.
And that was a small town.
And that was this is a high profile.
This is Marilyn Monroe.
This is in the middle of Beverly Hills.
It's a cover-up.
Okay, so here's another weird thing. The deputy coroner who signed Monroe's death certificate said he did so under duress.
From who?
He didn't say. Maybe the police, maybe some powerful people in Hollywood.
Maybe the mob.
Maybe the mob.
So the death certificate said, you said the cause of death was possible suicide, but what was the...
The conclusion they came to was that she had committed suicide for attention reasons and failed to get help before she passed away. Now I don't know what
part of the pattern, right?
I don't know what the official phrase is on the death certificate, but it's probably possible suicide or accidental suicide or something like that.
But then, like you were saying, if there was that much sedative in the body, it was initially ruled as presumed not to be accidental and actually intentional.
Yeah, because you don't accidentally take 50 tablets, do you?
No.
Even if you take 3 because you forgot whether you took the first 2 or not.
So the death certificate
you found
officially says acute barbiturate poisoning, and
I guess it wouldn't say whether the motive for it, would it? It's a death certificate. It would be more clinical.
Yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, it would be completely objective, right?
Yeah. So it says acute barbiturate poisoning, and then it's quite hard to see, but it says ingestion of overdose, with the Well, it says sorry. So the death certificate is written in a different way to the ones that are done now, But it says cause of death, acute barbiturate poisoning, ingestion of overdose. And then it says intentionality, which would normally be like, is it an accident? Is it a suicide? It said probable suicide.
Okay, right. So I was right with probable suicide.
Yeah. Interesting though.
So they're not ruling out the fact that it was accidental, but it's probably a suicide.
Yeah. So under duress, they thought it was.
Yeah. So this came out
probably
quite a while
I
afterwards.
thought that. Yeah. So what you're suggesting there, Alex, is that the deputy coroner said he felt under duress to put those codes on it. So to say probably suicide rather than accident.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because that's, I don't know, when you hear of the death of somebody, obviously this is 50 years ago. 50 years ago? Yeah, longer, 60 years ago.
60.
Like suicide's still really frowned upon. So the fact that they wanted that to be put on really seems really tainting of her.
Yeah, it does. And
like if it's like accidental ingestion of a medicine that's resulted in a tragic accidental death, you'd be like, oh god, this is awful. This national treasure has died. But the fact that it says probably suicide, it makes me think that people are wanting to put on that to kind of besmirch her legacy.
Yeah, I don't think that's too much of a push. Because
these are motives we'll get to in a bit. But people didn't like Marilyn Monroe because she was involved with Kennedy.
Oh, I thought the general thing, at least now, the perception is that she's a bit of a... You'd think she'd be a bit of a role model in one way, because she's a big figure.
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely a star to the people, but people like the mob, who didn't like Kennedy...
Right, okay.
Got you. So we just haven't quite
so when you
linked
say,
that,
the people, I presumed you meant the public. So yeah, what you're saying about, Stu, about how it's almost surprising that they have put potential suicide on it. I mean, if it's factual and it looked like a suicide, they should put it. But I know what you mean. Because if they were to put suicide, this loved actress, everyone idolizes her, she's a bit of a role model, whatever, but she's committed suicide. In one way, it makes her look a bit human because, raising awareness of everyone's got issues and stuff, but I feel like in the 60s it wouldn't have been about that.
Yeah.
In my mind, at least. It would have been more like, oh, it's shameful, almost.
Yeah. That's the main thing that kind of strikes me, that it just seems out of proportion to what you would necessarily expect, I suppose, looking back on it. But then I suppose Alex is probably going to tell us more and we'll probably go, oh, that'll be why then.
Give it time. Twirl his mustache.
It's brewing.
So, as we kind of touched on, possibly the biggest reason theorists claim that Marilyn Monroe was murdered is that her personal affairs provide a wide range of motives. So it's all circumstantial evidence behind some of these theories. Like, they haven't got concrete proof, they just think, like, this makes sense. Like, this would be a reason why.
Yeah, which is why it's probably not been investigated at this point.
Well, it has been investigated.
Oh.
Because people made all these claims over the 60s and 70s, and then an investigation was conducted in 1982 to determine whether there was any foul play in the original investigation. So they did this study, looked into it, and they admitted that the review discovered some factual discrepancies and unanswered questions from the original investigation, but concluded that the evidence failed to support any criminal conduct. Her death therefore remained a suicide.
Well, the lack of evidence isn't necessarily evidence.
They looked at it. They said, it's a bit shady. Some of these things don't really add up, but it's not enough to justify...
Either way,
a murder.
It feels inconclusive, but there's no evidence to support that it was a murder,
Yes.
Okay.
So, I have got 4 conspiracy theories about her death.
Okay. Pick number 2, please.
Do you want number 2 first?
It felt like a game show.
No, we'll there's kind of an order to them, so I'll start with the first one.
Okay.
But do you want to throw out any ideas before we start with them? Any guesses?
And so these conspiracy theories are that it's not suicide?
Yes, all of these are that she did not commit suicide.
My first thing is that I feel like the enema theory is a bit much. Like, I can't see how no one would have noticed it. And, well, it's only really her housekeeper, unless her housekeeper was involved. But there was no record of foul play of anyone breaking and entering.
Nope.
Which would have been a big giveaway. Washing the sheets even then, like, surely, yeah, housekeeper let them in maybe, but and then
wash the
that's
sheets.
That's plenty of time to be. But why would she still be washing the sheets at that point?
She's really diligent.
Yeah, but why would she still be washing the sheets?
All of the enema fluid
when everyone's doing the investigation. That thing doesn't add up.
Because she messed up.
She only realised afterwards.
Right, but again, if it was an enema, surely it'd be more than just the sheets. Surely it'd be the duvet, it'd be the mattress, be over the floor.
Well, maybe they cleaned those things, but they left the sheets to last.
Or maybe the body on top of the sheets was too hard to manoeuvre until someone else came to help. I don't know who that person is, by the way. I'm just.
I just want to hear the theories now, because.
Wait, gives you a chance.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Do you want to throw some things into the void?
Yeah, go on. We'll take number one, please.
Apparently not. I want to say it's political.
Okay.
It was to silence her from becoming too high profile and moving from fame to politics.
Found out about Jeffrey Epstein.
She was a time traveller. Or Jeffrey Epstein is just very, very ancient.
I mean, how old is he?
I mean...
Well, he's dead now.
Well, yeah, sorry. I meant...
Well, or is he? Or is he? Find out next time on Ramblings of a Madman.
Okay, no, so he was 9 in 62, so...
Yeah, no, I'm joking. I knew he was going to be from the age of 9.
Yeah. He got into it early. He was brought up on the...
Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. Right, so probably the most famous conspiracy theory about Marilyn Monroe's death is that the Kennedys orchestrated it. This allegation has been circulating since 1964, so it was right in there after she died, and it involves Robert F. Kennedy ordering her assassination to protect his and his brother's career from an affair scandal. Similar to this, a 1973 biography suggests that due to the alleged affair, Monroe's suicide had been staged by the government to embarrass the Kennedys. In 2007, Australian filmmaker Philippe Mora discovered a partially redacted FBI document that suggests a conspiracy to induce Monroe's suicide. It was received by the FBI 2 years after her death and was compiled by an unnamed former special agent. It was forwarded to Washington by the then head of the San Francisco FBI and immediately circulated to the FBI's 5 most senior officers, so it was a big deal. Implicated in our document are Robert F. Kennedy, Peter Lawford, Dr. Ralph Greenson, her agent Pat Newcomb, and the housekeeper Eunice Murray. Knowing her history with suicide attempts, they apparently coaxed her towards the act by prescribing a large amount of barbiturates and made sure they were present on her nightstand. Lawford, during the night, called twice to oversee the operation and was apparently in touch with Robert Kennedy, who had left LA that day. So it is true that Robert Kennedy was in LA on the day, but he left and checked into a hotel in San Francisco, like late in the night, I think. So this is an actual FBI document which you can find online, and it says that all 5 of those people were in on it, and they coaxed her to commit suicide.
For what intent? For what intent? Sorry.
Presumably Kennedy paid them because he didn't want the scandal from the affair with Monroe to become public.
But it became public anyway.
Well, yeah, sort of, but it's not like confirmed. It's like a rumor.
Sure. I wonder if that just ended up fueling the fire rather than stopping it.
What do you mean?
As in, there would have been more talk about the fact that she's died, and maybe the reason for her dying is because of this allegation of an affair, than would have been ever come to light from maybe her never talking to the press about it.
Yeah, maybe, but I think the thought behind it is that she was going to reveal it to the press. and they wanted to silence her.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay, so maybe she's made some intent or...
Yeah, maybe made a loose threat.
You mentioned, yeah, or just said that, look, she can't hide it anymore, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of makes sense.
It does. There's definitely a motive there, but the evidence, besides this FBI document, which could just be like something they were investigating but never decided was true.
Yeah.
The thing that doesn't sit right about this is that you've got... So if there's 5 people involved, the housekeeper and her personal physician, what do you really have to gain for killing somebody off that you're supposedly friends with?
Well, presumably they got paid a lot by Kennedy.
But still, if someone said to you, here's a lot of money, but someone that you maybe know very well and work for, who I suppose I don't know whether or not she was nice to work for or not, but to actively kill somebody...
I agree with what you're saying, but also if you got someone who's got enough money to give to people to say, right, look, I'm paying you, you need to help me kill this person, chances are they've got enough money to give to other people to then kill you. So what if there was more than just money? What if it was threats?
Yeah. So the thing that would... You to be fair, Alex, you might not have the information here, but the thing that would tell me more about it now is what happened to the housekeeper. Because in this scenario, it sounds like the housekeeper would be the person who had the least financial assets in this story, based on purely the job title alone.
Alex frantically types to find the answer.
If she's somebody who, after this death of Marilyn Monroe, has vacated to the Bahamas on a yacht, then that's suspicious. But if she's lost her job and gone to the wayside, it doesn't make any sense why she would do that. The same with the physician, like with the physician. Like, it's quite a significant thing to have somebody die directly as a response of your prescription. Like, granted, I imagine medical trials are not anywhere near as rigorous as they are now, but like, people surely would still ask questions that would tamper his reputation as a physician. And like, that might be his livelihood and his entire life. Like, those things, like, they must carry a consequence, the impact of somebody dying if those 5 people are involved. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm looking, I can't really find anything.
Yeah. We said that she had the allegation that the affair was with Robert, but did we also say it was with...
John.
It was with both of them.
Allegedly.
Okay.
Allegedly.
And what year is this?
62.
So it's the year before JFK was assassinated.
Mm-hmm. And then Robert F. Kennedy was killed a few years after that as well.
Hang on.
You got the brains turning here, the juice is flowing.
Oh, stop saying juice and flowing. That's twice this episode. It makes me feel ill. Those brains, your brain is looped.
Well, this is a weird time in history. You've got like the Bay of Pigs and then the Cold War. Like, it's all like compacted together, all this cool conspiracy stuff.
I need to look up the Bay of Pigs.
Well, we might do Fidel Castro in the future at some point.
Okay, I will not look it up.
And all the times they tried to kill him.
Marilyn Monroe dies potentially due to this theory of John F. Kennedy and an affair with John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
So they kill her off. A year later, whether or not they killed her or whatever, they might have known about it and know who did it. Maybe it was the mafia, maybe it was someone else. A year later, JFK dies, gets assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
Gets 360 no-scoped.
That, to me,
and then
is
the
a
guy
link.
who supposedly assassinated him is killed by the mob.
Right, let's finish off this one first, but that...
Interesting, isn't
it? It's somewhere in my brain, a vessel has just gone... and I'm like, too much to think about.
Okay, so let's talk about the mafia some more. The second theory is that they orchestrated their murder. This is based on the allegations of Bernard Spindle, who is a famous American surveillance expert, who had apparently wiretapped Marilyn Monroe on the orders of Union leader Jimmy Hoffa. Now, Hoffa was hoping to obtain incriminating evidence he could use against the Kennedys. Spindle claims to have heard Robert Kennedy and Monroe fighting the night she died, with Lawford present, followed by a large bang. These recordings were reportedly seized and destroyed in 1966. So that bang is thought to be them knocking her out.
In her house?
In her house.
Oh, okay.
Another mafia member who may have been involved in Monroe's death is Sam Giancana. According to the biographer Darwin Porter, the mob boss had Monroe over a barrel after coercing her first Hollywood contract in return for her seduction of powerful men he wanted to blackmail. Tired of this, Monroe was threatening to blow the lid off his operation, and so Giancana wanted her dead. Porter believes that 5 mafia hitmen were responsible for her murder on the order of Giancana, using a washcloth drenched in chloroform, then stripping Monroe and giving her a barbiturate enema. So that's where the big theory about the enema comes from.
Got you.
Alternatively, they all could have been in on it, with the Kennedys hiring the mob to assassinate the star. So there's a combination of the first two.
Okay.
I've said already that the enema thing doesn't really add up to me. Just because it's quite... it's not really elaborate, but it's a big thing to plan in my head,
it's an important assassination, right?
Well,
if you want to get Kennedy under your thumb, killing off his mistress...
So not necessarily the motive, just the actual action. Using that as a way of killing someone and making it look like a suicide. It's quite elaborate, but then the mafia would be good at that.
Mm-hmm.
They would know to do that.
They're good at what they do.
Yeah.
Horrible stuff.
I don't know why, but in my head at the start of the episode, it was like, it's not necessarily... It would have been someone big who's killed her. Like a big power. Whether that's JFK or anything else, like... No one else would have the motive. Like some random guy in the street wouldn't do it. But that's who I was thinking of for some reason in my head. So maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the motive's definitely there. It's whether it's too elaborate is the question.
Yeah. Go on.
So the third theory I have is that I've kind of already covered it a little bit in the Kennedy bit, but some people think that Marilyn Monroe was killed by either the CIA or FBI because she knew too much. And this is something you mentioned, Stuart, as well. It was thought that Monroe was a liability for the government, as she supposedly kept records of conversations involving confidential information in a little red book, such as plans to assassinate Fidel Castro, like I mentioned before.
Ooh.
My favourite conspiracy theory about this comes from the documentary Unacknowledged and claims that Monroe was murdered by the CIA because she knew the truth about Roswell. So, if you guys don't know, we'll probably cover Roswell at some point in the future. But it was a supposed UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. The CIA claims that it was a crashed weather balloon, but the lengths they took to cover it up makes it really, really shady. Anyway, the documentary uses a number of what it claims to be classified CIA documents, including a wiretap of Marilyn Monroe the day before she died. In the recording, she threatens to hold a press conference to tell the world what JFK had told her during Pillow Talk about having seen debris from an extraterrestrial vehicle in a secret airbase. So what do you think of that?
Okay.
Oh, shit.
There's the juice. I've got a link for you as well.
More juice.
It's a clip from the documentary. You want to watch it?
Yeah, go on, we'll watch it now.
I will also stick the link in the description if the viewers want to see. So it's pretty much just going over what I said.
Yeah, that actually brings me back to something that I didn't say on the last theory, actually, sorry. That I've just realised. So in the last theory, you were talking about the fact that somebody wiretapped Marilyn Monroe's phone?
A house.
Is that right? House?
Hmm.
So the phone call that allegedly happened on the night before she was dead, where she supposedly drifts off to sleep, is that commented on in the wiretap? Is there anything mentioning about that?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not
so when I said, was it recorded, surely that would have been recorded on the wiretap.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, maybe. Well, if the mafia theory's true, then Lawford is not involved in it at all, so why would they mention the phone call to her? Like I said, it was just like I'm holding a party soon, blah, 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 these are the details of it. So, like, the interesting thing they want to talk about is this argument with Kennedy that apparently happened.
Yeah.
And what it said at the end of that clip as well, it makes sense that she wouldn't have understood what she was getting into. Well, it says that she was quite intelligent and stuff. Like we discussed. Someone said that she was coherent, intelligent at the time of a certain recording.
Yeah,
so
and I've heard clips of her talking
about.
Before. Like she's pretty clever.
Yeah, but then also maybe she didn't realize the extent of the danger of releasing the knowledge that she knew.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that the government should hide things, but it also does make sense that if knowledge of a UFO got out, because they're talking about Roswell, it could be really bad. Maybe it wasn't a UFO.
And it's the fact that they went to so many lengths to cover it up that reflects badly on the government if it comes out as true.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a double conspiracy there. You first have to believe that Roswell was real, and then you have to believe that the FBI killed her because of Roswell. So it's a conspiracy squared for you.
Well, then there's the JFK murder, though, so it's conspiracy cubed.
Conspiracy cubed. Should be the name of this podcast. It's a better name for the podcast. Conspiracy cubed.
Conspiracy cubed.
I'll do a spin-off show. It'll just be me wearing my...
There'll just be 3 of you.
Wearing my... No, it'll be... No, you think it would be 3, but it's not. It's just me on my own in a dark room. Talking to myself. It's very awkward.
Every day anyway.
Right, so the last theory I've got is it's a bit of a winding path, this one, but I put it in because it's interesting, I guess. So follow me here. What if Marilyn Monroe had a mental breakdown and they committed her to a mental institution in Canada because of all the death threats and the alcohol problems and the drug problems and the pressure from being a general star? And in order to hide the fact that she had a mental breakdown, they staged her suicide. Right? Does that make sense?
Okay.
So, in his book, Marilyn Monroe Alive in 1984, John Alexander Baker tells a story of how he picked up a homeless, paranoid schizophrenic hitchhiker in Nova Scotia in 1984. Hearing that the man worked in cinema, she told him that she had been a movie star in a previous life, Norma Jean Baker, aka Marilyn Monroe. She told him that she spent over 20 years in a mental institution in New Brunswick, and when the money stopped coming in for her care, she was forced to leave. John Baker was taken aback by her similarity to Monroe, saying she looked amazingly like Marilyn Monroe with a few years added on. She sang just like Marilyn Monroe, and she seemed to know everything about Marilyn Monroe's life. She talked about her life as Marilyn as though she was just reminiscing. I haven't read this book, however, so I can't speak for the accuracy of it, but I mean, it could be a thing, right? That sounds like a true story.
So let's say it's true. It could be true, but also, if what he's saying is true, it could just be someone who isn't well and genuinely believes that she's Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, it could be.
Her life is very well documented, right? So it's not impossible to believe that someone would study that life and become, especially someone who conveniently looks like her as well, if she genuinely thought that she herself looked like Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't think if it's true, it's interesting.
It's a very interesting story if it's true. I've linked the book for you. It's $14.50 on Amazon if you want to buy it.
It's free on Kindle.
Free on Kindle if you want to listen to it in your sweet, sweet ears. After you listen to this podcast, of course. But if you go on to read more, it gives a brief description of the book where I took that extract from.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, he does say, I pride myself on being open-minded, so even if I believe something to be true, I will always be open to new information that comes to light. That being said, I believe 99% that she really was who she claimed to be.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Right, so that's everything I have brought to the table. Shall we wrap up? What do you think?
Yeah, I think... So the theory that sticks out to me the most is that the mob have something to do with this. I think it seems to tie in a sequence of events that has started from Marilyn Monroe's affair. I think the affair with the Kennedys has been something that people have been fearful of her using for abuse. And then her being killed off by them is the first chain in her being killed, and then JFK being killed, and then Robert being killed.
Yeah, it is very sketchy that all of them die within a few years.
Yeah, and it's hard to ignore.
One thing that, again, since we've done the JFK episode, a couple of people have said, like, oh, we didn't talk about the Mafia enough.
Mm.
And I agree with that. The more, after doing this episode especially, like...
Yeah, well... I mean, the episode was like an hour 40, so...
it was a lot of it.
You had to cut some stuff out.
It was a lot, but that, I suppose, if we ever did review episodes, like maybe we're doing a little bit of that now, we could start doing that a little bit now, not like anywhere near as big, but the involvement of the Mafia could have been a massive part, especially with that second theory. This was just the catalyst of it. Of that whole thing.
Yep.
And maybe the Mafia turned around and went, you know what, actually, it makes it look awkward if we kill all three of them in the same year. Same month.
Stagger it a bit.
Yeah, you gotta...
People will forget, it'll be fine. He says, talking about it on a podcast 60 years later.
I'm not... I feel like it's more likely, stereotypically, that the Mafia would have done this than JFK and his brother.
Okay.
Just in the... Not to say that leading political figures can't be corrupt, because they definitely can. And if I die after saying this, then you'll know why. But, you know, like... I'm not going to start pointing fingers now. I feel uncomfortable now I've said that. Who's listening?
He knows too much.
Well, no, but obviously it's obvious that anyone could be corrupt. Right, so there's a possibility that it could be JFK.
Are you going from the angle that you don't think they would have got their own hands dirty?
Yes,
yeah?
But also, I just find it more likely that... okay. I wasn't really thinking about it from that angle. I believe that the Mafia are more likely to be able to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong. JFK and someone else wouldn't have done it themselves. JFK and his brother wouldn't have done it themselves.
Yeah. The theory does say that they did it themselves with Lawford, but I think if you think the Kennedy one's likely, you have to believe he hired some people out to do it, right?
Definitely. And what if that people, not necessarily that he hired, but was the Mafia?
Yeah, and that's what I said as well. You could combine the first two to say that he hired the Mafia. But that ignores the fact that the Mafia apparently didn't like Kennedy and they wanted juice on him in order to blackmail him.
Well, maybe this was the juice.
Maybe.
So once they've actually
it's an inside job to get the juice.
Even if it's they collaborated on it.
First you create the juice, and then you drink the juice.
The person who's... If life gives you lemons, make juice.
If life gives you lemons, kill Marilyn Monroe.
I don't understand what you're doing. That's completely thrown me off.
That's my job.
No, obviously they could both be in on it, and then you're saying like, oh, maybe they want juice on him. Fuck you.
Embrace the juice.
What's the word?
Is it juice?
Dirt on him. They wanted dirt on him. So they've done it, they've agreed to help out, and then this has happened. And then instead of using that to expose him, or maybe the blackmail stopped working and JFK became too dangerous to the Mafia for whatever he knew.
I like it. I like the thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, when you kind of spin it on its head and you say, why are the other theories not right? The accidental overdose /suicide /unintentional death doesn't seem as likely based on the fact that everybody that's seen her said that she didn't seem like she was in a bad way. And then if she's been trusted enough to have a prescription of 50 pills that she's trusted to take once a day, presumably they think that she's lower risk. So this seems a bit out of proportion with that, although admittedly not impossible.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the Roswell one, I don't know. There's a lot less evidence, and it's very
it's very
circumstantial, and I don't believe it. But it kind of when you spin it on its head that way, and you say, well, this is why I think it's not the other ones. I can't really think of a statement to say why I think it's not the mafia / political theory. Mm-hmm. It admittedly has a bit of a merger between the two, but I think that's the way that...
Right, don't get me wrong. I know what you're saying, to be fair, because the buck, she was still alive and it was the whole mental, so the secure hospital thing. Mm-hmm. That is... I think we've said it a couple of times in different episodes. It's just convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's out of nowhere. It's completely out of left field.
It's a cool story to write a book with.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then sell for 15
You know what
quid.
I mean? And that's what he did. I think it could be plausible. It's definitely an interesting theory, but I don't feel like that's the one.
Yeah.
I would genuinely, after doing the JFK episode and this, and probably after doing the Roswell episode as well, I would put good money on it being a combination in some way of theories 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think, Alex?
So I was going to say that the Roswell thing is out there because you first have to believe the Roswell thing. But before that, I mentioned that she supposedly had this little red book with confidential information in it. Mm-hmm. Such as plans to assassinate Fidel Castro, which was a real thing and happened a lot, to the fact that Fidel Castro knew they wanted to assassinate him and he took a load of steps to stop it. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to think that this book actually was real and she did know too much and the government took her out. And then that would go again with the theory that the government also took out Kennedy after that, and then Robert Kennedy a few years after that.
I mean, maybe.
I suppose the connection there could be that the fact that a celebrity has managed to keep a book profiling their political activity shows that they're a liability and therefore need to be removed from the political scene as a threat to America from the inside.
Yeah. And she definitely had lots of opportunities. She had lots of opportunities to get confidential information. Mm-hmm. She had ties
literally being in bed with the president.
With the president and his brother, supposedly. And she was in with the mob, apparently, and she was famously friends with Frank Sinatra, and he was in with the mob. Mm-hmm. So yeah, possibility.
At what point is there a time frame for when FBI documents and stuff like that ever get released?
Trump released some 2016, didn't he? I think that's when a lot of the JFK documents came out, right? But they're still redacted a lot.
Yeah, so there's meant to be, I think it's 100 years after FBI documents are filed, I think it is, they're meant to be released to the public domain. But I don't know whether or not that's completely unredacted documents or if that's just the redacted documents that they kept on file get released.
Mm-hmm. And even then, I presume that they wouldn't release everything. They'd probably just release enough to make it look like they're releasing stuff.
If something's bad enough, they would get rid of it to start with. They would burn it and show that it
exactly, yeah. So this thing would probably never come out. But then the JFK stuff started to come out, so...
The
Philadelphia experiment stuff came out.
Did a executive order to release JFK stuff, right? Because that's what he said he was going to do before he got elected.
Oh, okay. The one good thing
citation
he did.
Needed. I think that's what happened, right?
If that's the case, then that's interesting. Again, if the sort of person who would know inside information like that, it's going to be someone like him. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So, but again, I'm asking the question just because it'd be interesting to see if anything came out about all this. But then if, like you're saying, JFK stuff came out, but if that was under executive order ahead of the 100 years or whatever.
I did mention that FBI document which came out about the conspiracy with the 5 of them.
Right.
And that was released, I think, in 2007, I believe, by a filmmaker called Felipe Mora. And it just basically said that we think there's a conspiracy between these 5 people, but it didn't really get any further than that, so they probably looked into it and then deemed it wasn't necessary.
And then the mafia went, nah. And they went, but we should probably look into it, and they went, no. Nah.
Yeah, how about you don't know?
Yeah, maybe not.
So that was shady.
It is a lot more shady. I didn't know anything about the theories behind there at all.
No, I didn't. I only knew the base level, like that. The fact there was theories about her death, but I didn't know the specifics.
I genuinely just knew that there was a suicide. I had never.
See, they've covered it up well.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it still could have just been a suicide.
Yeah, definitely.
But don't know.
It's hard to say with mental illness.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it, to say exactly what.
Yeah, you can't conclusively say whether or not, just because there's no physical evidence of a murder taking place.
Yeah.
Well, no, but when have we ever had physical conclusive evidence to any of our episodes?
I'd say a good 20% of the time.
That's not a good rate.
It's good for us.
I know, the way you said that with so much confidence.
Yeah, it's like 20% of the time.
Yeah, a good 20%.
We always have evidence.
Yeah, like that time the Stonehenge was a UFO landing platform because it's a circle. That's actual evidence, right?
Yeah,
it's geometry. Yeah. Could be true. Guys, is it follow me?
It was the Mafia.
What, behind Stonehenge?
It was the Mafia.
The Mafia made Stonehenge. Wow, they're an old organisation, the Mafia.
That's right. When Alex made that jump then between the Mafia made Stonehenge, in my head I went, what, the Stonehenge killed Marilyn Monroe? Two very different thought processes there.
Ramblings of a Madman is currently available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. All the links are available on Twitter at Roam Podcast. That's ROAM Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.